Okay, so we're going to practice some problems on the function concept lab. And one of the reasons that I'm doing this is I want to make sure that you show all the work. So I'm going to do a few of these and skip around, and whatever I don't finish, you guys finish. So first of all, this is talking about you have f of something is going to equal something. This is your input, or you like to think of that as your x, and there's my output. So as I do this, some of these you can actually find the points on the graph. So here's my first function. I need to find f of 0. So I really want you to write it like this. 2 times 0 minus 3 equals negative 3. So that's the point 0, negative 3 on the graph. That's all there is to it. And as you see, I'm starting them here, and I'm going from numbers all the way down to, then I'm going to start using letters. So when I come down to f, d here, I got f of 2 minus h. I'm literally going to say 2 times 2 minus h minus 3. And then I'm going to use the distributive property and actually go through and do the math. So I have 4 minus 2h minus 3, which equals 1 minus 2h. So I'm basically practicing input and output. Up here, you can actually find the point on the graph. Here, it's more algebraic. Number 2 is similar to that. You're going to plug points in, and then you're going to come up with come up with points and figure out how that's used. But please show all your work. I'm going to do number 3 with you. If you were to look at this, you could tell like, oh, this is a parabola. But I want to see what we're doing. Here they want me to do f of 0. So I'm literally just going to throw a 0 in there. So I have 0 squared minus 4. So that's negative 0.4. So the point is 0, negative 4. You know what that is? 0, a number, is your y-intercept. So I just found the y-intercept of my graph, or the vertical intercept that we all hear sometimes, by just throwing the 0 there. So I found that. But look what they want us to do now. They want to solve f of t equals 0. So I'm not going to plug 0 in there. I'm going to plug 0 in this whole spot of f of t. By doing that, I made my y 0. So any numbers in the y is 0 is called your horizontal intercept, or we like to also call that our our x-intercept. Okay, so I'm actually going to put that whole thing to 0. So I have 0 equals t squared minus 4, and then I'm going to say 0 equals, and I'm going to factor that. Then I'm going to do my big T here, and then put each piece equal to 0. And then by doing that, I have T is 2, and T equals negative 2. And so what I actually have here are 2 x-intercepts, or 2 horizontal intercepts. I have the point 2, 0, and negative 2, 0 on this graph. And you can always graph and check that, but that's the difference between your input and your output. All right, let's see what else I'm going to do just to get you going on this. Oh, I'd like to do number 4. So here I have this function, f of something, we'll call it box, equals box divided by box minus 1, because that's what the function is. And as we start along here, you'll see I've got f of 2, f of 0, f of 2/3. So I've got some numbers going on that I know that I plug in there, I'll get a number back. But make sure you show all your algebra. But then you'll see D and E where I'm actually plugging in an algebraic type function or fraction. So I'm going to do E with you. So I'm going to actually, both those spots, put the 1 over t plus 1. That's in the numerator, so that's right here. I'm doing that. I should not put an X there, but that's where it is. And then I'm going to put in the other box below 1 over t plus 1. And then I have a big minus 1. Now, that's not incorrect. In fact, that is correct. But that's called a complex fraction. And complex fractions we can simplify. This is review. So what I'm going to do is multiply the numerator and the denominator by the common denominator. And as I look at it, I see it's t plus 1. So I'm going to multiply the numerator by t plus 1, every single term by t plus 1. By doing that, you actually simplify how it looks. So here I can say, thanks for playing. They cancel out. That's a 1. Thanks for playing. That's a 1 minus, and then there's nothing here to cancel. So don't forget the parentheses because it's a binomial. I'm going to write it like this. Then I'm going to go through and simplify it. So that's going to equal 1 over 1 minus t minus 1. And then get rid of that because those cancel out. It actually is negative 1 over t. So that's how I want you to show the work for that. So that's letter E. F is you're going to put it equal to 3 and figure that out. And then you're going to do absolute value. So there's a little bit of practice for all of these. 9, I've got this here. You're going to plug it in. So it's just more algebra to do. Oh, I must have moved these around, but that's okay. So here's 3, there's 4. All right, so now let's do 10. So it says let f of x be radical x squared plus 16 minus 5. And I want you to notice that the x squared plus 16 is on the is underneath the radical, but the negative 5 is not. So when you do this, just be careful. Sometimes people will put the whole thing underneath the radical. So I first want to find f of 0. So if I do 0, a number that I know is going to be my y-intercept, so I'm going to show the work. I have 0 squared plus 16 minus 5. So that's the square root of 16 minus 5, which is 4 minus 5, which is negative 1. So that's the point 0, negative 1, which I know is my y-intercept or vertical intercept of this graph. Okay. Now it says for what values of x is f of x 0. So I'm going to take this whole thing here and make that 0. So now I have the square root of x squared plus 16 minus 5 equals 0. And now I'm solving for x. So this is a radical equation. So I'm going to add 5 to both sides so I can isolate my x. So I have x, the square root of x squared plus 16 equals 5. Then I'm going to square both sides because I'm trying to get the x out from underneath the radical. So I have x squared plus 16 equals 25. Subtract 16 from both sides. And when I do that, I get 9. So x squared equals 9. Square root, square root. And if you do it that way, don't forget your plus minus. So x is going to be 3 and negative 3. And again, I have what values of it? 0 is going to be 3, 0 and negative 3, 0. Okay. Now they say find f of 3. Well, we kind of already did, but let's just see if it works out. If I do f of 3 and actually plug it in there, so I've got 3 squared plus 16 minus 5. That comes out to be 9 plus 16 or 25, and the square root of 25 is 5. So 5 minus 5 is 0. It is the 0.30, and that's what we found before. They're just kind of having you check that, okay? Now the vertical intercepts, what are they? Well, we already found that up here. We did this the very first thing. So it was 0, negative 1. Where does it cross the x-axis? Well, we did that right here. We found it crossed at 3, 0, and negative 3, 0. And then it says sketch the function and show all the appropriate information. So I'm going to just sketch it right here with everything we found. And by doing that, I have, ready, I have x and y. And what I've got here going on is I have 3, negative 3, and then it's negative 1. So here's the points we found. So if I just throw it through that, this is a nice sketch, and you can graph it to check it. So that kind of gives you a beginning of this. So I just wanted to show you that before, so you can watch what we did in class. So finish this lab up, and you'll be all done.